A spirit that is connected to the initial atom, that is, to the hydrogen atom of our cosmos, will not leave it until a moment when an advanced stage of that atom will occur, which we call being. Here, again, there is a mechanical automatic evolutionary progress. That is, spirits in that first stage of the evolution of hydrogen will continue in their evolution by passively following all successive developmental stages of the primal hydrogen atom which they grasped at first. During that time, they are not prevailing upon the hydrogen atom. For, there exists neither intuition, comprehension, nor freedom in them that determines such a prevalence. These are not in a situation to bring out a being from various matters by gathering them. Therefore, their evolution processes are more or less passive and mechanical as the ones in the initial stage. There is one difference in between, that while in the stage of amorphous milieu, beings could not hang on a matter at all. For, there they were not actually in a state in which they were able to grasp any matter. They were only rendering their mechanical applications by jumping from matter to matter, under the necessities of original influences amidst disarrayed matter. In the initial stage of the hydrogen cosmos, beings are connected to the hydrogen atoms they grasped. They cannot jump to another atom than the one they are connected to. And throughout the whole development of that atom, they follow its developmental stages, except that meanwhile they are not prevailing on that atom. They only participate passively in its motions and grow accustomed to adapt to these motions. For, these motions are constituted under the sublime necessities of original influences and take on their directions. There, spirits will complete the application cycle, which will take a very long time until the stage of being, under these necessities, and by becoming captured, that is, by becoming passively led, obeying these motions. Starting from the constitution of this initial hydrogen atom until the occurrence of the initial state of being, the influence which prevails upon the structure of the atom is the prime influence, that is, the influence coming from the original principle, and of this, as we have said, a side exists which belongs to the spirit that has connected to that atom. So, in this original influence descending into this atom, there are sides, one material side, belonging to the structure of the atom, and also a spiritual side, incoming as belonging to spirit. Thus, influences belonging to spirits and incoming indirectly, through the channel of original influences, will only render their mechanical applications by adapting to the determined motions of the atom. As they progress towards the stage of being by this application, they automatically do preparations of initial instincts belonging to the states of relations between matter in the face of the causality principle. Evolution in this cycle is very long and arduous for spirits. Of course, concepts of arduousness and length here are relative. Actually, there is no such thing either as length, shortness, arduousness, or easiness in the divine order. The hydrogen atom, even though it is the simplest matter of our cosmos, carries more or less a vast amount of energy, because it has acquired many influences and values before reaching this stage, starting from the initial amorphous matter state of universe. Let us remind you once again that the hydrogen atom we talk about here is not the hydrogen H known by chemistry. The hydrogen atom we talk about is a matter combination, which is the primary atom of our cosmos that includes all solar systems, stars, nebulae known by mankind through telescopes, in short all astronomical bodies, and the hydrogen atom known by chemists is one of the very advanced and developed states of this hydrogen atom, we mentioned as the initial matter of our cosmos. As it is in all matter in our cosmos, for the hydrogen atom as well, sustaining its state and its presence, And continuously making progress is only possible by the equilibrium sums of the many matter parts hidden within each other in accordance with the duality principle and value differentiation mechanism, and these equilibria are governed by the original influences. Now, we will start explaining how the hydrogen atom has developed until entering the stage of being. We have stated that below the hydrogen state there is an endless milieu of mechanical development and evolution. This milieu, as we have said, is a dark field making up a disarrayed whole, akin to an amorphous state. The original influences, after constituting the initial nucleus in this dark milieu, by gathering other parts around it, bring out increasingly more complex, more complicated and more developed states. And the original influence, in the center of the matter constitution, which has been brought out in this way, after being used within this constitution, starts again to radiate from that matter to the outside, as its original state is lost and its quality is changed, and we call it the magnetic field of that body. So, all spheres and constitutions of the hydrogen cosmos, from its smallest parts to its largest systems, occur in this way. After the initial hydrogen nucleus is constituted as such, by developing in the way we mentioned above, it eventually reaches the stage of the hydrogen H atom known by chemistry. To the initial hydrogen atom constituted under the governance of the original influences as such, until its utmost stages of development, that is, until it reaches the state of being, only the original influence and the influences belonging to the spirit that is connected to that atom arrive. That is, of the original influences, which we will later explain as we talk about influences, the parts belonging to spirits that we call evolutionary values and the parts belonging to matter that we call prime influence, arrive. Therefore, the motions in the structures of these atoms are only under the governance of the sublime original influence. Spirits, by passively drifting, adapting to these motions, render their mechanical automatic evolution. This is a kind of passive adaptation stage of the evolution. At this stage, influences belonging to other beings that we call secondary influences do not arrive at the structures of atoms. Actually, because the freedom and comprehension of spirits are not in question here, the tests and trials belonging to further stages do not exist. They only have to automatically adapt the regularly progressing and increasingly complex motions of atoms. And while adapting these complicated motions of atoms more and more, they are preparing for the stage of being. However, gathering various kinds of hydrogen atom to bring out various objects is necessary for the development of beings. So, to these compounds and combinations of atoms, known by mankind as objects, secondary influences arrive from the beings in duty, again, under the sublime control of the unitary, and these render various formations, deformations, and transformations in these objects. Nevertheless, unlike what is the case for atoms, no more direct prime influences descend to these compounds. Instead, secondary influences prevail. And of course, these are always under the control of original influences. The structure of the initial hydrogen atom, as just mentioned, continues its development only under the governance of original influences, until it reaches the state of being and elements occur, which are developed states of hydrogen atom, known by mankind by such names as oxygen, silver, platinum, lead, radium, etc. Of these mankind could only recognize about 100, but their numbers exceed 100. Again, as we have said, the transformation of the hydrogen atom into higher elements occurs only by the efficacy of the original influences. Thus, after ensuring the development of matter up until the stage of being, from that moment on, prime influences do not directly arrive at being, only influences from the spirit it is subject to, or more correctly from the part of the original influence belonging to spirit and influences from beings, which are in various evolutionary stages in universe arrive, and we call the former secondary influences. So, with all these influences, that being starts going through the tests, trials and experiences which are necessary for its evolution and encounters many possibilities. Amidst these evolutionary possibilities, which are gradually developing, increasing and encompassing, in order to accomplish its doings in the universe, that being sets out on its long journey of evolution. As of necessity for its evolution, with the secondary influences arriving from these beings in duty, as we have just mentioned, out of various elements of hydrogen atom endless combinations are constituted and myriad objects are made up. And by various formations occurring through the assembly and dispersion of these objects within infinite variations, large and small objects, matter combinations, bodies, miscellaneous matter that fill up the worlds, and finally worlds and systems are constituted. All of these are done with innumerable secondary influences sent by beings in duty and who exist at every stage, under the light of original influences filtrating from the unitary. Therefore, secondary influences cannot intervene in the structure of atom. It is completely under the governance of prime influences. However, all kinds of combinations of atom elements can be built or dispersed by the secondary influences arriving from beings in duty, which are naturally in large or small scale according to the degrees of beings that are at various levels of evolution.